What a bombshell report by 60 Minutes tonight, which absolutely shows their complicity in the 9/11 attacks, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and how Muwahsid al-Jarrah, the head of the Islamic Ministry of Affairs in Washington, D.C., had overseen the plan inside the United States, which means that Saudi Arabia did indeed have intelligence and governmental operatives inside the United States overseeing the plane's operation, codenamed Holy Tuesday, also known as the 9/11 attacks. This is a 4-minute video, but I'm going to read you a report from CBS News, which talked about this video existing for the last 23 years. Now, remember last year, I did a video on basically Operation Encore. And it came from here. Newly released video shows 9/11 hijackers with alleged Saudi intelligence operatives. This is 2022, right? President Biden signed an executive order last fall, which was, I think, Executive Order 14040, to declassify 9/11 evidence. Not all of it, by the way. The families of some 9/11 victims say they had to go through the British court to get records and videos seized 2 decades ago from an alleged Saudi government operative that they have never seen public until now. Brett Eagleson, who I've interviewed for the Darkened Hour. Why did it take 20 years for this information to see the light of day? Now, I'm going to be playing the video. And this is the first time the video has been seen by the public. And here we go.
A voice on the video says in Arabic, "I am transmitting these scenes to you from the heart of the American capital, Washington." This video, unsealed in federal court this week and obtained by 60 Minutes, was recorded in the summer of 19...
Now, what I want to say here, though, is why is the case in the Capitol when it wasn't attacked? Well, according to officials and investigators, the buildings that were selected by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Omar, Osama bin Laden, and Al-Qaeda's military committee director, Mohammed Atef, Abu Hafs. The targets were the World Trade Center, Pentagon, and the Capitol. Now, it's alleged that the Capitol was going to be hit by Flight 93 before it crashed. However, interestingly enough, the hijackers on the plane had conflicting stories. This is the first time that we know that the hijackers warned the passengers about them crashing the plane and killing everybody. However, according to the testimony of 2 people who called loved ones, oh, for you no planers, your argument is finished. The calls were legit because it lines up with what we're seeing now. 2 of the calls basically said one was going toward the Capitol, one was going back to New York. But the plane crashed in Shanksville. So these were the 4 targets that were selected. It's alleged when Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in 1999 had met with Osama bin Laden and Abu Hafs that he was going to take the Bajinka plot idea, which would have been 10 times worse than 9/11, as the new operation. Now remember, the Bajinka plot, for those who follow the channel, was a 3-phase plot, with the 3rd phase being very covert, until they found the laptop by Ramzi Youssef. Thank you, Abdul Hakim Murad, for going back and getting caught. The plan was to have 12 airliners outfitted with bombs and have them all explode over the Pacific from Southeast Asia and New York and the United States. 2nd phase of the plot was the assassination of Pope John Paul II. 3rd phase was secret. 3rd phase was secret operatives inside the United States would learn how to fly planes and crash 10 of them inside the United States. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, after a couple of years, went to Osama bin Laden with this idea. Bin Laden basically rejected it. The 2nd time Khalid Sheikh Mohammed set up a meeting with bin Laden, he basically said that we should hit the Capitol, the Pentagon, the World Trade Center, the Golden Gate Bridge, a nuclear facility, the Sears Tower, the Empire State Building. But bin Laden said that it would involve way too many people, and the option of these people getting caught are huge. So they decided on 4 planes. So that's where the idea came from.
99. The man behind the camera is Omar al-Bayoumi, who the FBI says was an operative of the Saudi intelligence service with close ties to 2 of the 9/11 hijackers.
Capitol, time is 6 p.m.
The video was filmed over several days. Bayoumi recorded entrances and exits of the Capitol, security posts, a model of the building, and nearby landmarks. In this portion of the video, Bayoumi points out the Washington Monument and says, "I will get over there and report to you in detail what is there." He also notes the airport is not far away.
What I see Bayoumi doing is going out and making a detailed video record of the Capitol from all its sides, and then conducting that 360-degree panoramic view.
Richard Lambert is a retired FBI agent who led the initial 9/11 investigation in San Diego, where Bayoumi and the 2 hijackers lived temporarily before the attacks. He's now a consultant on the case filed by the 9/11 families.
If you've ever flown into Washington, D.C., one of the first things you see on the horizon is the Washington Monument. So if you know where your other targets are in terms of the Washington Monument, it helps guide you to your intended target.
Federal investigators believe the hijackers on Flight 93, which crashed near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, had the U.S. Capitol as their likely target. The lawyers for the 9/11 families and former intelligence analysts we spoke to believe portions of the video show Bayoumi surveilling the Capitol as part of that plan. And in the video, he references a, quote, plan.
What does that mean?
You said that in the plan.
Now listen, Saudi Arabia basically said about the video that it's circumstantial, that this was a tourist video. Well, why would he need to know about the security plans regarding the Capitol? Why would he need to know about the airport near the Capitol? Why would he need to know about the monument near the Capitol and its security concerns? Come on, man. It's obvious.
Who is he talking to?
What do you think he's talking about?
I think he's talking to the al-Qaeda planners who tasked him to take the pre-operational surveillance video of the intended target.
So this video is taken in late June and early July of 1999. What does that timing tell you?
Well, that means it was taken within 90 days of the time when senior al-Qaeda planners reached the decision that the Capitol would be a target of the 9/11 attacks.
That's when Osama bin Laden decided to approve Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's so-called planes operation. In the days after 9/11, British police discovered the video during a raid on Bayoumi's UK apartment.
Let me stop right here. So remember that ABC report I just showed, the CBS report I just showed you, Operation Encore, where they found the United Kingdom investigators went to the home of Omar al-Bayoumi, who lived in London. And by the way, what's in London? An al-Qaeda media office. Khalid Ziad Khalil, Al-Fawaz. That's where they're from. Anyway, and they're the ones who gave satellite phones to bin Laden in the 1990s. How the NSA learned about that and cracked the code and decrypted the phone. God knows what they heard. According to the CIA, the NSA was the possessor of the most information regarding bin Laden and al-Qaeda out of all the agencies. He called it the gold mine. That's the CIA talking. And I've interviewed Shoya. All right. Secondly, in these documents are basically, according to the FBI, and I did a video on this, were outlines of the monument, the Pentagon, the Capitol. Okay? This would mean that if this was just basically a tourist video, why would they have coordinates regarding those two sites? And according to the FBI, there were coordinates so that when they were near the Pentagon, they would pass by these areas, the monument, the Capitol, meaning that these coordinates were for the Pentagon. Why? Because Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi were on Flight 77. You saw the video, the Dulles video. You saw them, and according to you truthers, there's no date on it, but there's a fucking passenger on it named Maurice Ray Sopper holding her cat in the cat box. She died on September 11, 2001. Explain that away. Anyway, Omar al-Bayoumi was handling who? Giving logistical and financial support to who? Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. Who else was helping him? Fahad al-Tamari, the imam at the King Fahd Mosque, who gave them initial lodging, who the 9/11 Commission basically said, Dieter Snell said this, senior staffer, we don't know where those two hijackers went for the first 2 weeks. They fucking knew, because the State Department basically said, let's not give away our interests. I tell you people not to fucking vote. If they're protecting Saudi Arabia from being guilty in 9/11 attacks, what do you think they think of you? Secondly, Osama Basnan, a militant who had bin Laden pictures in his house, who hosted a party to Omar Abdullah Rahman, the blind sheikh, for his role in the landmarks plot the FBI arrested. The New York police. All this ties into Saudi Arabia and Al-Qaeda, and who was heading this plan inside the United States? The man who was redacted in the Operation Encore files, except for one page. Muwahid al-Jarrah, no relation to Ziad Jarrah. Muwahid al-Jarrah is the director of the Islamic Affairs Committee in Washington, D.C. He's the man who basically gives jobs to imams in the United States at these mosques. He's the one who hired Fahad al-Tamari inside the United States. He's the one who basically sent two emissaries in Adel al-Sadhan and Mu'tab al-Sadari to be his eyes and ears in San Diego, in Los Angeles, who were coordinating with Omar al-Bayoumi, Fahad al-Tamari, Osama Basnan, and others. And wait till you see who's in the fucking video for the first time ever seen anywhere. We'll take a look.
They also seized Bayoumi's handwritten address book that the lawyers for the 9/11 families say was filled with phone numbers of numerous senior Saudi officials who were in the government at the time.
This is huge.
And when Bayoumi filmed the Washington video, he was often with two Saudi diplomats who the FBI says had
bingo for the first time ever. Mu'tab al-Sadari, and I'm pretty sure that's Adel al-Sadhan, which means that Omar al-Bayoumi cannot say that he didn't know these people, which he said about Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and others, and denied any connection. Same thing for Fahad al-Tamari, and the 9/11 Commission interviewed him and found him deceptive. Mu'tab al-Sadari, Adel al-Sadhan, the connection, the eyes and ears for who? Muwahid al-Jarrah. Muwahid al-Jarrah connected to who? The Saudi government. This is it. This is the Mortivities Ghetto for Saudi Arabia. This is it. The families they got to be livid. Elizabeth Miller for 9/11 for Peaceful Tomorrows. Brett Eagleson, 9/11 Justice. They got to be outraged. I mean, the law firms like Cradle and Cradle and Molly Rice, the jaws are dropping. They've always suspected this. This is it. There's no hesitation here. This is a connection for the Saudi government and the al-Qaeda operatives involved with the planes operation. I mean, that's it. This is unbelievable. There we are. Mu'tab al-Sadari, Adel al-Sadhan, for the first time ever. And Omar al-Bayoumi knew them. Look, he said their names. That's it.
Ties to al-Qaeda, a finding the Saudi government disputes.
Well, it is another very large
It's a
brick
fucking wrap
in a massive wall of evidence
huge.
that at this point indicates the Saudi government was complicit.
Hey, listen, I don't mean to pick on you 9/11 truthers, but if you don't mention this, you really are you're all grifters. And you know who I'm talking to, not the lower people, because they're victims. To all you self-appointed experts, all you big people that love to travel around the United States, go on vacations in Cabo, all you fake motherfuckers, you don't report on this. You didn't report Operation Encore. You sure as hell didn't report, some of you did, which I'm surprised, about the Canestraro document. But this, man.
Ken Williams is a retired FBI agent who led the 9/11 investigation in Phoenix, where one of the hijackers attended flight school. He's also a consultant on the case filed by the 9/11 families.
In terms of all the revelations that have come out as part of this 9/11 lawsuit, where does this video rank?
I think it ranks right at the top of the pile.
The government of Saudi Arabia says, nothing to see here, this is a tourist video. This is a guy out looking at the sights in Washington, D.C.
I would vehemently disagree with that. This is not a tourist video.
The British police are believed to have turned over the video to the FBI shortly after 9/11, which raises the question, why, after more than 20 years, is it just now surfacing?
Did somebody really mess this up? This seems like a really big thing to just being made public.
If that was missed, then shame on us for missing it.
I mean,
if it wasn't missed, then I would have to ask the question, what was done with it?
He's got to feel terrible. I mean, what else could you say? Now, listen, there's more to this, all right? There were other landmarks that were going to be targeted. And one of them was basically the U.S. Bank Tower. And let me show you this article because it lines up with what? A dry run that happened in 1999. I spoke with Darren Harvey, the other half of the Beyond Ground Zero podcast with Sean Russell, and he immediately said Millennium Plot and the dry run. I'm sorry, the Millennium Plot, me and Nelson talked about, and the dry run, which Darren mentioned. I thought immediately the same thing. 1999. What happened in 99? The plan for the planes operation. So now, what I'm trying to say here is this. What I've always theorized, now I'm not saying I'm right, still no evidence for it, but that the intelligence community knew. How else did the Israelis know where all the hijackers lived? Because they lived near them. Thank you, Gerald Shea Memorandum. How did the Saudis and CIA knew about Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf Hazmi? Because they were monitoring them since 1999. From the Malaysia summit meeting where the NSA had a bug listening to the phone calls there. God knows what they were talking about on the phone. Heard about the Malaysia meeting. Told Malaysian authorities, take pictures. Allegedly, there's a video. Sent to the Bin Laden issue station headed by Michael Scheuer. But at the time, it was Richard Blee. Sent all the photos, maybe the video, which wasn't shared with even the NSA or the FBI or the State Department. Why? Because according to the Canestraro document, the Saudis and the CIA were running an illegal covert operation monitoring two known al-Qaeda operatives inside the United States. What happened in 1999 as well? The CIA declared war on bin Laden and al-Qaeda. I showed you the Carl Levin yelling at George Tenet, we're at war with al-Qaeda. Why wasn't this information shared? Because according to George Tenet, who lied on the stand, said nobody read the cable about them coming inside the United States. Meanwhile, 53 case officers read it. Okay, let's get to the article, right? So this was 2015, almost 10 years ago. How the U.S. Bank Tower was almost targeted on 9/11. Now, I'm not going to read you the whole article. I want to go down over here. right? This is huge. As it later came to light, when al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden met with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and Abu Hafs, that's Mohammed Atef, in 1999 to plan the attacks, they included the Liberty Tower, along with the World Trade Center, Sears Tower, and a list of potential. There was like 10 targets. Mohammed envisioned 2 waves of hijacked planes, 5 from the East Coast and 5 from Asia. That was the Pachinko plot. 9 of the planes would crash at selected targets, such as the CIA, the FBI, nuclear plants. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed himself would pilot the last plane. He would kill all the men aboard, then make a proclamation condemning American policy in the Middle East. Finally, he would land the plane and set the women and children free, which lines up with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed giving an interview with Yosri Fuda before he was captured. Bin Laden nixed the theatrical elements of Mohammed's scheme and eventually decided to simplify, focusing the attacks on the East Coast. For a time, the terrorist attack on Los Angeles was off the table. However, we're going to get to that because this all lines up well with what? Millennium Plot, Ahmed Rassam, the Chaldean training camp, the Jordanians. And who was with the Jordanians? The man who created ISIS, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, who later on, was the leader of the Wal Jihad Tawheed movement, which later became al-Qaeda in Iraq, which later became the Islamic State and Levant, headed by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, because the United States killed Zarqawi. And the few remaining people alive that were in Syrian prisons suddenly let go, along with those captured by the Americans, suddenly let go and given brand new trucks, allowed to take oil fields in Syria, allowed to trade millions of gallons of oil. To who? I don't know. Nevertheless, this is huge news because what we are basically saying is that we have a connection with the Saudi government headed by whoever, led by Muwais al-Jarrah, who directed everybody inside the United States that was involved with this operation. This is tremendous news. And it basically is huge because now the Saudi kingdom can't say they feign ignorance. Now, what I'm hoping for is more information regarding the GIA in Algeria and maybe foreign intelligence about how that could be connected to the dry run, which basically was reported by none other than Al Jazeera. Now, I'm going to read this real quick. Saudi embassy may have funded dry run report. Now, remember, I did a video about this. DJ Thermal Detonator talked about this for years. Very few people ever mentioned this. But now it makes sense. And I'll tell you why it lines up well. This is 2017. New evidence in 9/11 lawsuit against the government of Saudi Arabia alleges the kingdom's embassy in Washington, D.C. may have funded a dry run for the deadly attacks in 2001. The evidence was submitted as part of a class action lawsuit against the government of Saudi Arabia, the New York Post reported on Saturday. It alleges that the embassy paid for 2 Saudi nationals to fly from Phoenix to Washington. Phoenix. What happened in Phoenix? Phoenix Memo by Ken Williams, who just saw in the video, where a lot of the militants, including Hani Hanjour, went to train in flight schools. He reported on this. It was given to the FBI, and the president read it 2 years later after 9/11. Didn't even know it existed. Saudi Arabia has always denied any involvement. The victims' lawyers, however, said the evidence suggests a pattern of both financial and operational support. Now, we go down here. I just want to read this. The story cites FBI documents in the complaint alleging that Saudi students Mohammed al-Qudahin and Hamdan al-Shalawi were in fact members of the kingdom's network of agents in the United States. By the way, they were going to a Saudi embassy party. Who's there? None other than Muwahid al-Jarrah. Coincidence? I'm sorry, I'm not a coincidence theorist. I mean, I'm speculating here, so take this with a grain of salt. If I'm right, the conspiracy is even greater because they know they're in the United States. I don't think everybody knew. I think the CIA definitely knew. Some people. The NSA, yes, they knew. The FBI, I don't think so. Did the Israelis do? I don't know. There's no connection with the Israelis and these two men. Not to say that there isn't. But if there is, that means they knew since 1999. If I'm right. If I'm right. And the NSA heard about the plane's operation in 1999. The CIA also knew, maybe. And that this information was kept from the American people, the FBI, and the State Department. Now, of course, some people love to blame George Bush and Donald Rumsfeld. Do you really think you want public figures to know the details of the plane's operation? They're on a need-to-know basis. Do you really want George Bush knowing, even though he's a damn retard? He might slip up. I mean, he may know an attack is coming, but he don't know when. He may know what group may be involved, but he don't know the details. He don't need to know. People who are going in front of a TV don't need to know details because the people who know details like JFK, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, 9/11 are either dead or out of the country. You get what I mean? So with that, I'm going to leave as is. This is just a bombshell report. And I am now anticipating the response by the alt media giants and the complete silence of ABC, NBC, CNN, because the United States protects their interests, whether it's Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf. I mean, if this was North Africa, they're fucked. If this was Ethiopia, Zanzibar, they're screwed. We don't have much interest there. But I mean, I'm stunned when I saw the video of Mu'tab al-Sadari and Adel al-Sadar. Right there shows the connection between those in the United States and the Saudi government, because they were there by Muwahid al-Jarrah's advice. And they answered to Muwahid al-Jarrah. Who's Muwahid al-Jarrah answering to? That's the next step. All right, guys, look, I'm blown away. I really am. Share this video. Share. If you don't want to share the video, share the links I'll put in the video. I don't need credit. What matters more to me is this information being known to a majority of the people. I would like to think so. Because I always said if people remember me more than the information I provided, I did something wrong, because my goal is to basically uncover some hidden truths regarding the worst terrorist attack that changed the world. I don't need the credit. I'm not here for that. I'm here to help, or try to, regarding solving at some level the 9/11 attacks. And I implore you, the viewer, to write articles and do videos, because we need help. There's very few of us. So if you're worried about how you look or how you sound, Don't worry about that. I thought about that for years. Self-conscious, I don't like the way I look and I don't like the way I sound, but it's not about that. That's vain. It's about what you know. Too many people opine and say what they believe. Who cares about that? Nobody cares about an opinion. It's not helping anybody. Information is power. And the power belongs in the hands of the people. Thank you very much for watching the video, and see you in the next one.